What is up, everybody? So we'll give it a few seconds before people get in here. So just kind of chatting it up a little bit. Alex, Tyler are joining me today. As Tyler has pointed out in the chat, all of the proceeds today will be going to Taylor AZ Bulking on Twitter, who has lost their belongings through a house fire. So, Alex, how you doing today, man?
Doing pretty good.
Cool.
Sweet.
Good stuff. Tyler, how are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good.
Wow. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, looks like we'll have a questions on Patreon to get to. And then, as I said earlier, we'll open up to the YouTube chat, and the super chat feature will be enabled to hopefully raise some money for Taylor and his family. So looks like people are still trickling in. We'll give it a couple more minutes here. Sorry, cut out for a second there. All right, let's get started with these Patreon questions here. The first one is from Riley Williams, our good friend. He's asked any free agents that you have your eye on. So we've obviously gotten this question a few times after the draft, and the Chargers have gone out and signed Christian Covington, a defensive tackle, who will provide some depth for the Chargers defensive line behind Jerry Tillery and Justin Jones and Linval Joseph, which was 100% something that they needed, especially after getting a square time with the Browns. So, Tyler, anyone here that you want to mention again in terms of free agents that this team could add for some depth purposes?
Yeah, I was looking at, as soon as he was released, every Chargers fan was like, Bobby McCain. But as it pertains to most free agents that are released with some sort of starts at a position of need, the Chargers fans are like, this guy. And we're like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, I don't know who this guy is. So I tried to watch a little bit of him from 2019 and 2020, just one game in each to get a feel of what he was doing. He's an 87-game player for the Dolphins. It seems like he was both an outside and slot corner before his transition to free safety, where the last 2 seasons he's been a single high free safety. Just jumping around to 2019 and 2020, yeah, he's been a free safety the last 2 seasons, which is ideal because guys like Webb and DeLuca, the free agent, they aren't that for the Chargers, and neither is Gilman. So he does look quick. He does have that straight line speed with a 4.5 40, which is better than both Webb and DeLuca at a 4.7, I believe. He does seem to try to make some run stops in the run game. But sometimes, and I only jumped around 2 different games in 2 different years, and I still saw running backs blowing through some kind of weak arm tackles. So not like a great tackler by any means, but at least a willing one. So that's definitely a concern. I believe the biggest issue for him, and the reason that he was inevitably cut by the team, is because of some lingering issues with injuries. As far as just quick research goes, he had a knee injury, he had a concussion, he had a hamstring injury, he had a season-ending shoulder injury. So there are definitely some concerns there as far as that goes, which brings me to the next guy, Malik Hooker. Same thing, another free safety, but again, more concerning injuries. And the Chargers seem to avoid guys with significant injuries histories in free agency and the draft. So I don't know if either of those guys are on their radar, but I believe they should because, while neither, if Malik Hooker wants to be a starter, that's fine. McCain, I don't know if McCain will ever get a starting role unless there's an injury, but if he doesn't mind coming in as a backup, I think there's a shot. But they still have to do something. I'm glad they brought in defensive line depth. That would have been my other option if they didn't, but they did bring in someone, so I feel better. So now, for me, everything's on free safety.
Yeah, I think that's right. And the thing is, like, people were talking about how Malik Hooker wants a starting job. It's like, there's no starting jobs, so you're not getting one. Like, right. That's just what the market decides ultimately. So that's kind of the thing with him. Bobby McCain, I feel like people just kind of saw the S next to his name and it's like, we need one of those, like Tyler said, which is like, I don't hate that. Like, you're filling a need, and I do like the player. But overall, I don't know. The free agency class for me, I'd be intrigued in, signing Malik Hooker or somebody like that to a kind of 1-year deal. But other than that, it's kind of slim pickings out there. KJ Wright is a guy that I'd be intrigued, someone who has linebacker depth, some pass rushing ability. But other than that, it's all kind of underwhelming at this point, unless you're looking like for maybe some kind of like, just positional depth. I don't think you're getting any guys in free agency now who are going to, start significant snaps in games.
Right.
Yeah, it's all just depth at this point. So there are some interesting, players out there like Brian Poole, maybe potentially as some more cornerback depth would be intriguing to me. Nick Easton, the guard from the Saints, is still available. He's played guard and center in the NFL, so that could, the Chargers do. I feel better about their depth at this point than I did last year. So they've got some, good depth behind their starting trio and Scott Quessenberry and Brendan Hymas. But, I think bringing in a player like Nick Easton would make some sense, at least for competition purposes. Trey Boston is still available, so I wouldn't hate that. But obviously the Chargers are familiar with him. And then Steven Nelson, I don't think the Chargers are going to be in on him. But apparently he's been talking to at least 12 teams. So he looks like he's going to have a strong market. We'll have to see how that plays out. But those are some interesting names to keep an eye on. To me, at this point, after they address defensive tackle, ideally I would like to see them add another safety and maybe another interior offensive lineman for competition purposes.
Was Nelson? He's pretty much just a corner, right? He never played safety or anything. There's no real versatility there.
Yeah, he's outside corner, 100%.
Yeah. All right.
So next question again from Riley. He said, look at the team from last season. Was that team one Derwin James and a mid-tier offensive line away from the playoffs? I don't think so, honestly. I think the coaching dysfunction was at such a high level that Derwin would have helped. With a healthy Derwin James, they probably get to 8-8, maybe 9-7. But Derwin James doesn't change the Patriots game. Derwin James doesn't change the Miami game. Derwin James doesn't change, the Tampa Bay game, in my opinion. So I think with a healthy Derwin James, they maybe go 8-8, 9-7. But as we talked about on the schedule release episode, every team that made us in the AFC won at least 11 games last year. So the offensive line, it certainly would have helped make things easier for Tyrod and then Justin Herbert. But I think the biggest issue with the Chargers last year was the coaching staff and just the constant lack of communication across the board, which is ultimately what led to them having, a 3-9 season and then a winning streak, saving the season and going 7-9.
I think if you give the Chargers a good offensive line and Derwin James, they make the playoffs in the NFC East, perhaps. But that's just the reality. I agree with Steven. It's just do you think Derwin James, with all the coaching dysfunction, as good as he he worth 4 wins? Is a slightly better offensive line worth 4 wins? I don't know. They got kind of blown out in some of those games, and like the Patriots game, I don't think it helps. I don't think they win the Bills game, as a result of having Derwin James. The offense was a mess. I think they could have gone 10-6, but as we said, 11-5 was the mark, so therefore they don't make the playoffs, right? I think they could have been better, but to me, even with Derwin and a slightly better O-line, I don't think they're on the level of a Colts, Browns, Ravens team that kind of made that wild card push last year. And to me, just all throughout the year, those 3 teams looked elite. They looked better.
Arjun says they could have gone 10-6 without Derwin. I guess, but I don't know. Everything's so if the Chargers found a way to have a strength in one area with this coaching staff, for some reason something else would have bit them last year. For whatever reason, it's just like a Murphy's Law sort of thing with the Chargers. Like you guys said, they had to go 11-5 just to even qualify to potentially go to the playoffs, just to tie someone, and hopefully they had the tiebreaker to make the playoffs with other 11-5 teams. So, but let's try a different way. If the Chargers made the playoffs, were they a Derwin James and mid-tier O-line away from, if they made the playoffs, contending with other teams in the AFC? How far do you think they would have gone if they had started with, the wild card?
Well, if they would have gotten the 7th seed, they would have played at the Buffalo Bills in the first round of the playoffs. I don't think that they would have won that game. I really don't. And everybody has kind of said like, oh, they have all these one possession losses and they're one play away, but they were also several plays away from being 3-13. Like it goes both ways there. So they could have beaten the Raiders at the end of the game, but then in Las Vegas, if Isaac Rochelle doesn't bat that pass down, then the Raiders probably win that game. So it goes both ways there in terms of wins and losses. But if they had made the playoffs, I don't think they would have beaten the Bills. I think, they showed how much of a tough time they had against the Bills previously, and I don't think that would have changed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing you could say is like the Bills did kind of struggle with the Colts a little in that wild card game, so if you do have Justin Herbert as your quarterback instead of Phillip Rivers, does that give you an advantage? Yes, but also the rest of the Chargers team was not as good as the rest of the Colts team, pretty clearly. So
now it's an interesting question by Ray for sure. As for the safety position, which Ryan points out, John Johnson, Jordan Fuller, none of them ran faster than a 4.6. I think we've gotten to the point now with analytics and GPS readings that we know, someone who is running a 4.6 can actually be fast on a football field. And I don't necessarily think that Alohi Gilman and Mark Webb are those kind of players personally. So I think there's a big difference between being slow in the 40 time and then playing fast. And I just don't know if Alohi Gilman and Mark Webb are those kind of players. So last question here from Matthew Henriksen, and then we'll open it up to the chat. So like we pointed out earlier, the super chat feature is enabled, and we're going to donate all of those proceeds towards Taylor AZ Bulking on Twitter, who lost his house in a fire. So anything you guys can help out, if you want to do a super chat feature of $1, that obviously all of that helps. And so that's going to be open. That's going to be available now. And then after we get to Matthew Henriksen's question, we'll open it up officially to the chat. So Matthew's question, what's your take on the Young versus Slater opener? So kind of a two-part question here. The second part, do you think it was purposely done by the media hype or NFL schedule biased decision? So as for like the scheduling aspect of things, as much as I love Rashawn Slater and Chase Young, those players don't drive the market, right? Like the people that drive the market are quarterbacks, receivers, offensive players, coaches. So I think this was just kind of a coincidence that this happened to be the opening game. It's going to be a tough one for Slater and the rest of the offensive line. As we said on our show yesterday, the Washington defensive line is legit, and they have 3 guys who could be potential All-Pro players this year, as well as a guy like Jamin Davis and a really good linebacking core. So it's going to be a very tough game for the offensive line, and we're going to find out really quickly just how well this unit has improved or not.
I do think the NFL on some level in week 1 tries to make at least every game interesting, right? So you can at least have something to go to, right? Like say, Jags Texans, for example, horrible game, but I want to see Trevor Lawrence, and I want to see, what are the Texans actually? But so I think the NFL does try to drive some stuff like that, but yeah, I think the Slater Young stuff was mostly coincidental. But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, the thing that I've said about that matchup is that I think it's particularly hard to go against that defensive line week 1. I guess some of the offensive line will get some help in the preseason, and you get some reps, obviously, in training camp. But I think that's just a really tough matchup with a group of guys that, I do think Slater will be better than Sam Tevi, and I think Corey Linsley will be better than, Dan Feeney or Scott Quessenberry. But, it's right now the line is a bunch of talented guys, but other than really Balaga and Linsley, none of them have played together.
I am going to be more optimistic about the matchup. I might even switch this game in my record prediction from a loss to a win.
Wow.
I do think, it was not that it was super far off to begin with, but
right.
You bring in the best center in football, the most pass protector whatever I'm saying, most pass pro ready left tackle in the draft. You have a bunch of pros and veterans along the offensive line who are all very smart. I thought watching Abuji, he was great with communication with and understanding his responsibilities. Are they like more talented than that defensive line? I don't know, but I think they can gel early. So you know what? Maybe I'll join Alex on the 11-6 train and say that now Steven's a pessimist.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we've got to get to a point where being realistic is not considered pessimism. But so we have our first super chat. Josh Steinbeck, thank you so much. June 2nd, Chargers trade for Julio Jones and pay a total of $12.5 million per year the next 2 years to maximize their Super Bowl hopes. And then Steven chug some water. So I have to drink some water apparently. And Tyler, I'll let you start this one off. What are your thoughts on trading for Julio Jones? Here we go.
No. I like it. Just seems like the Chargers always have this guy they should have traded for. I think last year someone posted an article. Should the Chargers have traded for Odell Beckham Jr.? Like, no. Should they trade for Julio Jones? Like, I get Max trying to maximize the Super Bowl hopes, but like, it's not this year, and I don't really like. It might be next year. I don't know. I'm not really up for giving up draft capital for Julio Jones unless they want all the compensatory 6th-round picks the Chargers are going to get. Like, I'm not really willing to give it up for Julio Jones, who's a great player, but that's just so much to give up for. Like, I guess if you're letting Williams go next year, then Julio Jones is your wide receiver 2. Do you consider him a 2 or a 1 with Keenan Allen on the team?
At this point, he's a 2 to Keenan Allen, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm not for it. I like the idea of pushing all in at some point, but not this season and not with Julio Jones.
Yeah. I mean, if the question was, Julio Jones is a free agent and, you can get him next year and let Mike Williams walk, if that was the question, I could see it because his value wouldn't be super high. And it's like, all right, he's had some injuries, but, that probably decreases his value and you don't have to pay as much. But, Keenan, I mean, that Julio Jones contract is a fat contract. And you're going to be paying that for 2 years if you pay for Julio Jones, right? So that's just the thing. Like, if it was a team that's like all in this year, like maybe the Bills could kind of be that team that could like swing that trade.
Sure.
Like, I think that makes a lot of sense. But for the Chargers, I just don't think they're all in this year. And I don't even know if they were all in, would Julio help them out significantly over what they have? Like, I certainly think Julio is better than Mike Williams. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if having Justin Herbert as your quarterback, do you really need that? And, Josh also just said compared to $15 million for Mike Williams, like, yeah, the thing with Mike Williams' contract is it's rough for 1 year, but it's 1 year. And then you can kind of move on in whatever direction you want to, versus the Julio contract still has 2 years left on it. And Julio is also, I mean, he's got to be approaching like 35. I mean, by the time that contract is over. So plus the injuries in previous seasons, it's just a little.
Yeah, I'm not really in favor of it. And I think that Julio Jones is a great player, but the situation with Atlanta is that he's gonna, if they're trying to trade him, he's an all-time great player for them. They're not gonna give him up for pennies on the dollar, and that's just not really Tom Telesco's MO. So I understand, like, it would be awesome to add Julio Jones and pair him with Keenan Allen, and if they're able to, develop Josh Palmer, and then you have Tyron Johnson and Jalen Guyton, like, that's an awesome, 5 deep wide receiver room. So I get it, but the Chargers are not that kind of team. And even if Julio were a free agent, I don't know if they would go out and sign him. So that is the question there. So again, any proceeds for the Super Chat feature will go to helping Taylor rebuild his house. So if you guys could please, use that feature, even if it's just $1, anything little will help there. So a couple people asking about the Devontae Adams to the Chargers thing. I've been kind of tweeting about it. It's just a fun thing to me. I think, the whole drama in Green Bay is kind of being overstated right now. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to play this year in Green Bay. I think Devontae Adams probably gets extended. So The Chargers can make it work. If they don't bring back Mike Williams, they will absolutely have the money to make it work. They have right now, I think $18 million in cap that they'd be able to roll over for next season, depending on how much they use for in-season budget. So they'll have the money to make it work, and that would be like one of the best 1-2 punches we've ever seen. But I just don't think, again, that's not really the Chargers' style to go after a big name skill player free agent like that.
I guess I'll go.
I think. Oh, okay. Never mind.
Look, if Devontae Adams is available to the Chargers, whether by trade or whatever the hell happens, that means Aaron Rodgers went to Denver. And so if I have to give up Devontae Adams to the Chargers so Aaron Rodgers stays in Green Bay and doesn't go to Denver, that's fine. I know I have no power over that. But if I had to pick, I'll say no to Devontae Adams so Rodgers stays in Denver as well. Green Bay.
Oh,
sorry.
I think it would be interesting, but like the whole is Devontae Adams available ultimately depends on is Rodgers in Green Bay. I don't know what I make about that so far. I think he's certainly unhappy and could, really demand a trade out of there at some point. But I just think the Packers are in such a state where it's like you have to do whatever it is to keep Rodgers happy. And if that's trading Jordan Love or, making up for the past 15 mistakes you made, I think they're going to do that over trading Aaron Rodgers just because you don't get that quarterback. Well, the Packers have gotten that quarterback actually every time they've taken one. But I do think that Rodgers is just, I don't think he's going to be going anywhere. So therefore, I don't think Adams is going to be going anywhere. If it were available, I guess I would go for it just because if you have Adams and Keenan Allen running routes together, it'd be really fun. But yeah, I just don't think that he's actually going to be available. And even if Rodgers were to leave, like the Packers at that point, I feel like would be hard pressed to like keep everything they have, right? For a Jordan Love or for whoever would be taking over for Rodgers in that scenario. So they would probably throw Rodgers left in any to keep him. So I don't know.
Yeah. So looks like Alex is having some technical difficulties there. But yeah, it seems like he was kind of just stating that, it's unlikely to happen there. I get that Aaron Rodgers is a little frustrated at the lack of, going all in for, that's his perception, especially after they drafted Jordan Love. But like, what's a better situation for him? I get that he apparently wants to move out west, but is the Broncos really that much better of a situation for him? Because they probably have to trade Jerry Jeudy in order to get him, and maybe a couple other defensive starters or something like that. The Raiders are definitely not a better situation. So I understand that he's frustrated, but I think Rodgers is eventually going to come around and realize that the Packers are the best situation. People trying to say that the Chargers are getting Jalen Ramsey. It's not happening, you guys. They already signed him to an extension. They're not trading for him. There's zero chance that Jalen Ramsey ends up a Charger until his next contract is up. And even then, the Rams traded like 4 first-round picks to get him. Ramsey's going to retire a Ram, and I think that's pretty much a guarantee at this point.
Yeah, Jalen Ramsey is just today's Devontae Adams or yesterday's Devontae Adams, where everyone's like, whoa, wow, we're going to get Jalen Ramsey and pair him with Derwin because they're FSU buddies. And that was 2016, 17, 18, 19, 12. Like, we've been waiting for this pairing to happen. It never has. So I feel like that'll be the same thing with Devontae Adams.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the Super Chat feature is enabled. We would love to be able to raise some more money for Taylor. So, hit us up with the Super Chat feature if you guys can. Trevor, we also said Slater was 0% chance to get drafted. That was before all the trades that happened. So, that's a completely different situation than Jalen Ramsey, who is under contract with the Rams currently and not a player who's about to get drafted.
Well, that, and personally, it wasn't even for me, like Slater being there, it wasn't the 0% chance. I legitimately thought the Chargers would just pass on him based on measurables. Clearly that's different. And clearly the Chargers, I believe, are a smarter drafting team where I want the best players available. But based on history, I didn't think they were going to take him anyway. So for me, it wasn't about him being there. So whether they even take him.
Yeah, and I just felt like there was enough hype of him being, the best offensive tackle in the class ahead of Penei Sewell, and there were enough teams that needed offensive line help. And listen, like it's obviously a what if scenario, right? But I am convinced that if the Giants had stuck at 11 and not gotten that offer from the Bears, they would have stuck and picked Rashawn Slater. All right, so we got a couple super chat things. Thank you guys so much for those. Wow, we got Simon Shum from Hong Kong. That is
my
awesome,
people.
man.
Let's go. Let's fucking go. Go Pot Choi.
That is awesome. Thank you for that, Simon. So we got Above Average Gamer sent us one, no question. So that's just a donation. Thank you so much for that. Hopefully you had a good time at PF Chang's, my man. Salvicious, $20. Thank you so much. Favorite Chargers player all time and why? I think for the longest time it was LaDainian Tomlinson, and it still might be, but the 2018 season from Philip Rivers really swayed him a little bit. So it's got to be LT or Rivers for me. Oh my gosh. Someone sent $99.
Jeez. Well, as soon as I left the show, you guys seem to be raking in the cash. So maybe
get out of here, Alex.
Maybe I should just leave permanently. I would also say Phillip Rivers. LT is kind of obviously a big one too. But I think for me, because I'm a little bit younger, I sort of saw like 2006 to 2010 LT. I didn't see him fully at his peak. And Phillip Rivers is kind of the reason that I am a Chargers fan. To me, he just played such a pivotal role in the franchise that it's the reason I'm still here after moving to LA, and he would be the reason that I would be here after moving to Saskatchewan, Canada, if they did that. So that's just how important I think he was to a lot of younger Chargers fans for sure.
Yeah. My guy not growing up, it was LT just because, I mean, the guy was amazing. He's
so good.
Probably one of the, the best player in franchise history, if not top 3 at worst.
Yeah.
But the more I don't know, I say I had access to the internet, but Phillip Rivers in his press conferences, there will never be another guy like him. As much as we like Justin Herbert for the player that he is, and he does give good press conferences, very thoughtful answers. Nobody is Phillip Rivers on the mic, and just be able to follow him. And I don't watch press conferences much anymore unless the coaches are speaking. And even when it was Lynn, I just started to turn it off. But I never missed a Rivers press conference because you either learn something, or you get hyped up, or you just see how intense he is about things. And there was just never anybody like that. The funniest looking guy when he runs, the funniest looking thrower. There was just so much to him. Yeah. And then he was a fantastic player for the franchise, and my quarterback won forever. This is my childhood hero kind of guy. And Herbert will always be, assuming he has a great career, always be a great quarterback and near and dear to my heart, but it'll never replace Phillip Rivers because you just idolize these players differently when you're growing up. I'm a Chinese guy and I was never I want to be Phillip Rivers one day. I had never had those aspirations of being a quarterback in the NFL, but you look up to the superstars at that age, and it was Phillip Rivers for me.
Yeah. I think I've said this before, but I only experienced one season of Drew Brees, and that was the first year that I went to a Chargers game. And so I obviously didn't get to watch Phillip Rivers that year. And then, from then on, it was all Rivers from age, I think, 11 until 24, 25. It was all Phillip Rivers. So played a huge part in my childhood, played a huge part in why I love football as well. So just such an awesome player to watch. And you knew, we all knew every single week that Phillip Rivers was going to lay it all out on the field, that the Chargers were at least going to have a chance to win. And that's just something that I think maybe gets a little underappreciated because you look at other teams who haven't had that kind of good luck, good fortune, if you want to call it that, over the last few years. And I think a little underappreciated there. So we did get a couple more super chats. Trevor Black sent one simply with the phrase "Eagles suck, Alex." So shout out to that. Ryan Scandura sent one asking about our favorite addition this offseason, it being draft or free agency. Alex, I'll let you take that one first. Favorite offseason addition.
I think I'd have to say Asante Samuel. Just the fact that they got him where they did. Obviously, you can go Corey Linsley or Rashawn Slater, which I know is what Steven's going to do, or he's going to pick Brendan Hymas. But I'm very much a wide receiver, cornerbacks kind of guy. And those are my types of players that I like to watch a lot. So, that would probably be my favorite addition in general. But yeah, like I really don't think there's a wrong way to go unless you pick, I don't know, Roundtree. But yeah.
I'm shocked that wasn't your answer, Alex. For me, it's going to be Corey Linsley. While I did not get to watch a whole lot of Packers football, I just don't necessarily watch a lot of Packers football. But, based on what you see, whether it's just advanced stats, metrics, or breakdowns like Steven did, the Chargers have been missing this piece to their line for so long, and the lack of communication has been such an issue for this team. So not only have a very good player, I don't know if Arjun's still in the chat, and you can remind me what the numbers were, but when you compare the Chargers running up the middle versus, behind Corey Linsley, how the Packers run up the middle, the way, like the difference in numbers in statistics between those two is mind-boggling. Like, it shouldn't be efficient to run behind Corey Linsley, yet it was for the Packers. So for all the offensive line communication, for him being a good player, good in run support, and just to help out guys and help gel this line together, I think it's the best addition and most important addition of the offseason for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, when you talk about upgrading a certain position, it's not very often that you get to go from second or worst to arguably second best or first. So yeah, as much as I love Rashawn Slater, and I think, I'm going to buy his jersey in a few weeks as soon as it becomes available for the Vapor Edition. Corey Linsley, like the upgrade that he is, cannot be overstated enough. And I think, just the ability to have that kind of veteran presence up front, be able to set the protections and go from allowing 30, I think it was 33 from Dan Feeney to, Corey Linsley probably allows 10 this year, somewhere between 8 to 12. And then obviously, like Tyler was just saying, the effect on the run game, it's just, that's the best offseason addition and obviously my favorite. So next question from Thomas Martinez. He asked, will Staley's familiarity, with the NFC East be a help to start the season facing the football team and the Cowboys? And then he says that Alex needs to stop swearing, kind of making fun of that, doing that SpongeBob meme with all caps and stuff like that. So Alex, I'll let you take this one first. Does his familiarity with the NFC East, he played all 4 teams last year, beat all 4 teams, will that help the Chargers this year?
I think it's a pretty big fucking deal in terms of, playing those teams and, seeing what they have. In all seriousness, I don't know. I mean, when did they play Washington last year? I don't remember what week it was, or also who the quarterback was at that point. Tyler or Steve.
It was a split. I think Smith came in halfway through it.
That's right. Yeah, that was Alex's first game. Yeah,
that was the game where Alex Smith came in. So I don't know. Like, there was some weird stuff in the NFC last year. I assume when they played the Cowboys, that was post Dak injury. Oh no, it was Dak. Yeah, was it Dak? Yeah, I think so. I don't know. There's a lot of changes in the NFC East, and it's kind of a weird thing. Like, you have obviously Washington as a new quarterback, Philadelphia as a new quarterback. Dak is back for the Cowboys. Daniel Jones is still there. But I don't know. I think there's been a lot of roster overhaul to the point where I'm not going to say the NFC East is a lot better. I still think they're probably a worse division in football, but I don't think it's going to be quite as chaotic as it was last year. But yeah, so in terms of does it help? I think, certainly against Washington, like just, trying to kind of quiet, like say Terry McLaurin or, some of the other options that they have on that team. I think it can. And, he did play better, or he did kind of coach better in the second halves against those teams. The Eagles game was just a nightmare against the Rams, but that was also because Carson Wentz was terrible. So I don't know. I think it helps, but also these teams are so different every year with guys they bring in. I think if, for example, if they were playing the NFC West and you had like Seahawks, Cardinals, Niners, like all these teams that Staley has played like 2 times,
Mm,
that would be
mhm.
kind of more interesting. But I don't know if the advantages against the NFC East would particularly help, just because I think, that division has kind of really, kind of changed a lot this offseason.
Will it help? Like, yeah, sure, it'll help. Why not? Like, I can't imagine that some experience doesn't help. But say it says they beat the Rams. No, the Rams beat the Washington football team 30-10. They beat the Cowboys 20-17.
That
And the
was
other
the
team,
opener, right?
maybe for the Cowboys game, it says September 13th, so probably.
Yeah.
Those are the two teams they need to beat. Like, they actually need Staley to help them. I don't really think you need Staley to beat the Eagles or the Giants. No offense, Alex. I don't know. Like, it's such an interesting game. Like, they're I would have not have guessed looking at the stats. The biggest defensive performance was linebacker Troy Reader, and like he doesn't he get hurt later
Yeah.
in the season anyway. So, like, I don't know if and the biggest offensive player was Gerald Everett. Like, and those two guys didn't really do much down the stretch. So, I don't know. I don't know how it'll go against the Washington football team. Hopefully they can, I think that's the game, Washington football team, where Staley needs to have like the most influence on the defense and really put pressure on Washington, because their quarterback is unpredictable. If anything, he's unpredictable. And I think he is an upgrade over what they had last year in terms of what he can do in his ceiling. I don't know. Will it help them against those two teams? I at least think that they'll be more prepared early than Bradley's defense would be prepared early. Although the defense came out firing last season for the Chargers, I don't really think it was because of Gus Bradley. So, yeah, I think it'll help. And I think they'll be ready for those challenges as best they possibly could.
Yeah, I think it'll help against the Cowboys, because I think the other teams are different enough that, we'll have to wait and see, because I think the additions of Ryan Fitzpatrick and Kenny Golladay make a big difference for those teams. So we got another super chat feature or question from Above Average Gamer. When you guys are absorbing film during your breakdowns and draft work, what do you do to focus? Music, pillow chewing? Me personally, I just turn on some instrumental music or maybe a podcast that I like to listen to, and then I'm able to to kind of focus in that way. The music thing, instrumental music, is something I picked up during in college, and it's I think instrumental music really helps me personally focus. So that's usually what I do.
I can really only do one thing at a time. Like, I've never been one of those people that like studies with music or like podcasts in the background. It's really hard for me to focus when I do that. I've kind of a one-track mind in that way. So for me, it's just like you open it up and fire up the film, like, and try not to think about anything else for the 20, 30 minutes or hour that you're watching these prospects, right? So that's just kind of how I see it, but I don't know if I do a specific thing to focus. There's a lot of medications you can take to help you focus. Not making any suggestions if you want to do that, but to me, I would be the least versatile member of the Brandon Staley coaching staff, because I cannot do multiple things at once.
Nice, Alex. You're gonna go and get that international Adderall for us. I really appreciate it when you go out there. I'm a bit of a crack addict. Not literally. I'm not addicted to crack, but I'll turn on the TV. I will listen to something, and I will do my work at the same time. Like, for me, the more stimulation somehow seems to work for me. Don't take that the wrong way. So I'll listen to whatever. And honestly, one of my favorite things to listen to are just like soundtracks. Like, I'll throw on the Lord of the Rings soundtrack and just like study and I'll study and whatever. Hopefully, don't get copyrighted because of my singing there.
I'm not addicted to crack is exactly what someone who is addicted to crack would say.
I'm fine. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm completely fine.
I'm the same way. I think usually when I'm like sitting down to write an article, I'll have like the TV on or a podcast, and I don't know, there's just something about like listening to words while I'm typing words that helps me out. But when I'm watching film, I can put on really anything. But if I'm like really like struggling to focus, then it's the instrumental music for me. So next super chat question is from Trevor Black again. Thank you guys so much for doing this. We got just a donation again from A Han, so thank you for that one. But Trevor's question is, which game on the schedule is a trap game? For me, I think it's the Bengals game. The Bengals has a sneaky trap game potential there. Who knows what will be the case with Joe Burrow at that point, and how the Bengals are playing. I don't think they'll be very good in terms of wins and losses, but I think they'll be a little bit more competitive if he's able to, obviously stay upright. So I could see, that kind of west to east coast kind of trip. We've seen the Chargers lose to the Browns when they shouldn't have lost to the Browns in Cleveland. So for me, I think the Bengals is the trap game for the Chargers this year.
I will go with, since our Eagles fan is currently out, I'll say the Eagles. I think if the Chargers, so they come off their bye, and let's say they beat the Patriots, right? Now they're riding high. We freaking beat the Patriots. And looking ahead, we have, Minnesota in week 10 and the big Sunday night football game in week 11. Yeah. So maybe we can kind of overlook this Eagles team that did pick in front of us in the draft and really isn't as good of a team. And then they lose because there's some talent on there. We have no idea what Hurts can do. Well, we kind of do, but Marcus Mariota ran all over the Chargers last season when they played for the Raiders. So, maybe Jalen Hurts could do the same thing to the Chargers. I don't know. At that point, are the Chargers injured? So I do think the Eagles game could be a potential trap game.
Which week is the Giants game?
It's week 14.
Yeah.
14. Okay. And then, right. That's after the stretch of Steelers, Chiefs. I think Steelers is week 11, or no, the Chiefs is week 15. But I don't know, that Giants game, I kind of said it on the podcast, kind of feels like a maybe trap kind of game, just because, they get some of the tough games out of the way. And then, maybe Daniel Jones kind of has an okay game or something like that. I just feel like that game could cause some problems for them. And the Giants have gotten a lot better on defense compared to what they've been in previous seasons with some of their additions, obviously signing Adoree Jackson. And, they did add some offensive weapons for Jones. So, to me, that feels like a game that we all call a W in the season, but, maybe they are focused too much on the Steelers or some of the other games on their schedule and don't, maybe they're just not quite zoomed in on that one.
Yeah, so I think, all three of those games make a lot of sense. I actually think the Eagles, Tyler makes a great point, being sandwiched right in between, the Patriots, which is a huge game, and then the Vikings and Steelers too. So, and it's a west to east coast road trip as well. So Jay Blue asked a fun super chat question: who would test the best in an NFL combine setting between the three of us? Who has the best 40-time vertical jump and bench press? I'm fairly confident in saying that I probably would get the worst 40 time at this point in my life, weighing 270 pounds, and I don't run. But I feel pretty confident in saying that I probably would bench the most. I'll say that. I'll say that out of those two.
Yeah, I'll probably take the 40. I wouldn't take the bench. No, definitely not the bench. Vert, maybe. If you're asking me to touch a higher point, I'll lose. But if you're just basing off how tall I am, like you should, maybe I'd have Vert. I'm sort of athletic.
Yeah, I don't know. All the NFL combine drills are kind of stupid. I just play basketball. So that's kind of the thing. I don't know how that translates to a 40. I don't think if you had an NBA player who run a 40 that they would go fast, but they are athletic, right? So I don't know. Mm-hmm. For me, it's just all the combine drills and football in general, playing it is foreign to me. So that's I don't think I would win any of them.
I mean, when I was in high school, I used to be able to dunk a basketball, but that was 3 knee surgeries and 50 pounds ago. So
yeah, you're not winning that 40 then.
I feel like I could probably run a 5.3 or 4, maybe.
I think they have it at training. If they did before, I think the previous year they had a 40 thing at training camp. So if they do have it this year, we will show up and we will try to run that 40.
There we
go. I'll see if I can run faster than Rivers.
I'll need 30 minutes to warm up and stretch and stuff. But
I think
Thanks for the question, Jay.
I think it would be fun to do the thing that they do on NFL Network, where they put all the combine prospects side by side with Rich Eisen's 40 time, and I feel like that's what Stevens would be. All of his
I can run faster than Rich Eisen, man. Come on.
Well, to be fair, Rich Eisen is wearing a suit when he does his 40, so if you put him in shorts, I don't know, that might be closer.
That's true. Also, did you see that Mike Vick ran that this year and ran a 4.7 at age like 44?
Did he really? Oh,
yeah, it was insane. That guy is a crazy athlete. So, all right. So again, we've got about 15 minutes left. So if you've got any more super chat questions, feel free to use those. Someone said I'm also addicted to crack. Wait, this isn't a crack house. Let's see. So yeah, if you got any other questions, feel free to type them now. James Chard asked me to not blow another knee out. I'll do my best, man. I'll do my best. How'd you blow your knees out? Give me all the surgeries and the. Someone said Steven will need the pills, 3 pills. So I played basketball my entire life growing up, played football my entire life growing up, and when I was a senior in high school, I started to have some knee tendonitis issues, and then I was just training I had some walk-on invitations for basketball, so I was trying to decide if I want to play basketball or football in college, and I was just doing a workout, and I went up to do I was doing some layup and dunk drills and stuff like that, and I just jumped up and landed weird, and I ruptured both of my patella tendons. It was not very fun, and then like 4 months into my rehab, they had to go back in and scope my left knee because I didn't have much cartilage anymore. So in the span of 5 months, I had 3 knee surgeries, and it was not fun. Fun. Alex, any stories from you on the injury department?
I've really never been injured. I've like rolled my ankle a couple times, but yeah,
must be nice.
Playing basketball in high school, there's a lot of people who had it worse than me, or they tore their ACL, or I had one friend who like really messed up his ankle bad. But I've avoided all the bad injuries. I do stupid stuff where like I turn my neck around too fast, and that hurts for like an hour. But yeah, I've never had any surgery though.
I talk about rupturing both of my patella tendons, and Alex is like, I turned my neck around too fast.
Yeah, I mean,
hey, that hurts, man.
Yeah, like when you turn your neck around too fast, and then you have that headache. It's like, it's not fun. But yeah, rupturing your patella tendon sounds like a sucky time.
Yeah, it was not fun. Simon again, $100 super chat question. He says, when it comes to testing the combine, my money is on my Asian brother, Tyler. He used to do gymnastics, right? And then he said, by the way, would love to have the chance to meet all of you when I get the chance. And he says, fork the Raiders. So there you go, Tyler. There's your vote of confidence, man. Yeah, I think I could do it. As far as like I probably couldn't win a bench press. We don't do a whole lot of bench pressing in gymnastics, but like I was a state champion floor gymnast. So like I got those for a reason. So I could probably do some of like, I'm, good balance, good agility and stuff like that. So thank you, Simon, my other Asian guy from Hong Kong. I've never been there. And also it's pronounced fuck the Raiders, not fork. Good job.
It's actually per the Chargers, it's family, trust, and respect.
There you go. But yeah, I mean, you posted that picture of you doing that handstand at SoFi. I can't do that shit. So
yeah.
You don't need your knees for that, Steven, though.
That's true. I don't need my knees
I'll
for
hold
that. Oh man, thank you, Simon. That was a good one. James Chard and a couple other people have asked about Kaiser White playing some safety. I certainly don't hate the idea. That's what he played in college. I just think that the Chargers can't really afford to play him at safety. I mean, they could do it occasionally, but if they put Kaiser White at safety, then they're sacrificing linebacker depth in favor of safety depth, and so it's just kind of an issue there. So I think he could do it in a pinch, but I think he stays at linebacker for sure. Yeah, I completely agree. Like, yeah, he can do it in a pinch, but he'll stay at linebacker. I'd love to see him try it out. I don't know. I keep thinking of old things for the Chargers. Like, well,
they wouldn't take a tackle over this or this, so they wouldn't take Slater. And I also would think like, oh, because they pigeonholed Lamp to just being a guard, they wouldn't try him out at guard at tackle. So I'm trying to get past the idea that they would, because White's a linebacker for them, that he would never try out a safety linebacker. But like,
Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like this would be the regime that would, let him try it out at safety. So sure. And I think in a pinch, absolutely. I also don't think you should rule out Nick Neiman, not necessarily as a safety, but as a guy who's pretty good in coverage and has the measurables to be, pretty decent in coverage. I think that's also an option for them as well. Hello, Craig.
I think I think the thing with Kaiser is like we talk about how Brandon Staley kind of used linebackers and safeties a little bit interchangeably when he was with the Rams, and so I think Kaiser could do that relatively well. Like there's not a lot of linebackers you can think of on the Rams that like really contributed, but you can think of a lot of safeties who did linebacker things, right? So we talked about that versatility. So I think Kaiser could do that. I don't know about Neiman year one. I'd rather start him out just doing some line. Like I think he's playable for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm putting him at safety, but I think he can kind of definitely come in for a couple snaps at linebacker in a pinch. But yeah, I just don't. I think Kaiser is the bet if you really want to just put someone at safety.
Yes, James. I think Craig's from Louisiana, actually. If I remember correctly. Kareem asked, what do you guys think Drew Tranquil's ceiling is on this team? He played a little safety in college, so he should take some weight off Murray in pass coverage. He certainly could take some weight off of Kenneth Murray in pass coverage. He could definitely be, that dime linebacker. I just think that, when you're looking at Kenneth Murray, I think he's, just this ball of clay at this point who has every kind of measurable that you could possibly want. And so I think Kenneth Murray should not come off the field unless he absolutely requires to. I just think that Murray is going to be, this star linebacker. But it's going to be very interesting to see how Staley uses Murray and Tranquil because he didn't have those kind of players with the Rams last year. As for Tranquil's ceiling, it's a little tough for me to say right now because he's been so injured in his football career. I think he tore both of his ACLs in college. Now he's got this broken ankle that he's dealt with. So I think his ceiling has come down somewhat, but I know there were a lot of people around the league that felt like he could have been a Pro Bowl type player last year. There was all that offseason hype of him being that breakout player. So we'll have to see, but I think his ceiling has definitely lowered some because of the injuries.
Alex, you want to go next?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think. The Tranquil was just a blow last year just because he was supposed to be that breakout player and, that defense, particularly against the run, like it was just so bad. And it's like if you had all your linebackers healthy, I feel like things could have played out a little bit differently when it came to that. But I don't know. Like, I don't think his ceiling is down just because, I don't think a broken ankle is something that really, because you do recover from it, right? I don't know if it's, something like an ACL where it's just the more you get of them, it's kind of bad. But I would just say, I think his ceiling is about the same as where it is. But yeah, the more you wait, certainly there's, just kind of passing time for a breakout. But I don't know. It's really just going to come down to how Staley prefers his linebackers and if he decides to sign any or, just roll with the group they have now. If they roll with the group they have now, I mean, they have no choice but to play Tranquil a lot. So, and I think he was good when he did play for sure.
Yeah, you guys mostly covered everything so far. I thought he was a really instinctual player his rookie season. A guy who I don't think he got a lot of snaps aside from special teams until halfway in the season or whenever Perryman went down. And you could just tell from there, he had a knack for playing linebacker. I think he's probably better instinctually and in coverage than Murray was his rookie season. So I do see if I consider Murray ceiling one thing, and both of them are pretty athletic linebackers. I mean, I could see them kind of, I don't want to say the same ceiling because they're kind of different, but I do see good things for them. It's just hard to tell what his ceiling is. It's a guy who was a day 3 pick who, played 2 snaps last season. So I don't really know how to judge what his ceiling would be, but I could see him making the Pro Bowl, I suppose, as his ceiling. I just don't know. I don't know. I wonder if he gets any role on special teams this year because he was really good. I just don't know if they're going to let him. But he was like one of the leading tacklers on special teams in his rookie season. So I would love to see him get a couple of shots there.
Yeah, I think in terms of his ceiling, it's more so like the frequency in which he has been injured, more so than the specific injury. So that's just kind of my thought process there. Y Newman, they did change their strength and conditioning team. They have a sports performance team. So it's a little more modern, more analytically driven. They've apparently got a plan for players like Brian Blaga and Chris Harris to stay healthy as they age. And that's something that, Brandon Staley was able to see firsthand last year with Andrew Whitworth, who's like 47 years old and still playing at a high level at left tackle. So it is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So we've got a few more minutes. So if you guys have any other super chat questions, make sure and send them now. Arjun asked if Brian Bulaga is cut next year and Ibushi leaves in free agency, who would you want to play right tackle and right guard between Matt Filer and Brendan Hymas? So for me, that's tough because Matt Filer's 6'6". Like he's got a big frame. I think Hymas is only 6'4". So I kind of would lean towards Hymas playing tackle because I feel like that's more of his natural position. But I certainly wouldn't be opposed to any of those combinations. I think Filer at guard and Hymas at tackle, or Hymas at guard and Filer at tackle would be fine. I think that's a fine combination.
I'll take your word for it, Steven. You got the Hymas tape, and I didn't watch it yet, so I'll take your word for it.
Also, Trevor said that a broken ankle isn't as bad as a fast neck turn, Alex.
It's true. The recovery time on the fast neck turn is much worse. Some players may need to sit out for about a year.
And then Trevor also asked, as the roster is now, what do you all think the biggest need is for 2022? Followed up by a comment from Kareem C. We better draft another tackle. If Ryan Bulaga struggles with injury again and he does end up getting cut, then I think offensive tackle certainly is a big need. I think the way that it's trending right now, me personally, I think edge is going to be the biggest need. I know everybody is kind of high on Uchenna and Wusu right now. I just kind of need to see it first, and I need to see him stay healthy first and foremost. And I think, they've got decent depth at edge, but, ideally in the NFL today, you get two high ceiling edge rushers on a team. I mean, you look at the Browns, what they've been trying to do with Myles Garrett, they've been looking for this secondary pass rusher. They had Olivier Vernon, and now they get Jadeveon Clowney. That's kind of the path that teams are wanting now. You look at the Steelers, who had TJ Watt and Bud Dupree. So I think edge is probably going to be the pick next year in terms of what I think is the biggest need. And then potentially safety as well.
Yeah, I would say edge for sure. Also DB, just in general, whether that's safety or corner, just because Chris Harris is a free agent. We don't know about Derwin James in terms of whether he's going to play all 16 games this year. Obviously, we hope so, knock on wood. But to me, that's the spot with the least depth. They do have their two starting corners, like Michael Davis and Asante Samuel Jr., but I think a slot corner is going to be really important if Harris isn't there. And I think if Derwin is injured again, it's going to probably be time to start looking for another safety. Obviously, we hope that doesn't happen, but all the variables that kind of could go wrong in the DB room, that's just what makes me think of DB quite often.
Yeah, that Derwin James case is interesting if he gets hurt again, and it's significant this year because they picked up his fifth-year option. So it's not like they're not going to have him, but they do need to start preparing for life without him. And they've done that so far with the tight end room, with the wide receiver room. It seems like they're bringing in guys a year prior to prepare for guys to depart the following year or, down the road, I suppose. The Derwin James one is so hard. I feel like they're just going to hold on to that one every year until they have to cut him or it works out for him. And I hope it works out for him. As far as the need, edge, I think so. If I had to pick between edge or tackle, probably tackle. The tiebreaker is going to be that Nwosu is younger and Bulaga, because they might keep Bulaga. Bulaga's I would rather get a tackle, but Bulaga could still be on, he's under contract. So I suppose like Nwosu technically, and with him not being under contract, would be the bigger loss. Yeah, I don't know.
Either one of those,
ask me in 10 months, man.
And then, of course, if Mike Williams is gone as well, receiver could be a big need too. James Chard said Nick Hardwick had to retire because of a fast neck turn. So there you go. All right, so we're going to wrap this up. Thank you guys so much. We've had a great turnout for the Super Chat features, which, again, we're going to donate 100% of those to Taylor to be able to rebuild this house. So thank you guys so much. This has been an awesome chat. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And then we're going to have a fun couple episodes next week as well. I'm going to keep pumping out those interviews with the reporters who covered the universities of the players the Chargers drafted. And then we're going to go over some Brandon Staley coaching odds, coach of the year odds as well. And make sure and follow Arjun as well. Arjun is going to be pumping out some great analytical videos as well. And this week I'm saying as well a lot today. I just realized. But yeah, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.